public to email the producers of The Glenn Beck Show in hopes that they would make G. Edward Griffin a guest. Well, 2 years later, they finally listened to us. Last week, G. Edward Griffin was on The Glenn Beck Show. Here he explains how the New World Order controls the masses.
When you look at the Fed, any idea who's getting rich? Do they walk away at the end with piles of money? If we all lose, are they still, they're fine? Who's walking away with this?
I don't see it that way. I think these people already have about as much money as they could possibly spend. They started off with so much wealth that another mansion, another jet, another yacht doesn't make that much difference. I think what these people are doing, Glenn, is they're taking the leverage of this power, this financial power, and they're converting that into political power. Their vision now is much bigger than just making money. Their vision is really in terms of controlling nations and in controlling society and in controlling the world. We've all heard that famous phrase, the New World Order. They use this phrase over and over again. It's their phrase, and they're really serious about it. They're taking the money and they're buying up political leaders, they're buying up media outlets, they're buying up large organizations, influencing labor unions and so forth.
Show me how give me an example of where they're buying up media organizations or labor unions.
Well, all right, here's how it works. You know, the human being is a herd animal. We follow in groups, we follow leaders. And so all that anybody needs to do to control a society is to control the leadership of that society through what these people call the power centers. Those are the large organizations, you know, the things that people belong to, and they have leaders and they follow. They respect their leaders. We're talking about political parties, labor unions, church organizations, the obvious things. So they know that if they can dominate just the heads of these organizations, the half of 1% of the population that is in control of the power centers, they've got the masses in line. And so when you look at the tops of these organizations, they're all in line with the Federal Reserve, with the New World Order, and that sort of thing.
Okay, it is
not the membership, but the top.
It's the Saul Alinsky principle of organize the organized.
Wow, finally, Glenn Beck is educating himself and his followers on the New World Order and the Federal Reserve. You can watch this entire episode by going to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Lone Lantern. Now, last week, former Governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson, made a visit to Illinois. We caught up with him at the Free and Equal offices in Chicago to talk about the issues. Here's his views on the situation in Libya.
For starters, this is part of the economy. We continue to spend ourselves into bankruptcy, and so just the fact that we're opening up a third front now when it comes to wars, in my opinion, is accelerating what I think is going to be a financial collapse in this country unless government brings in line spending with revenues received. So with regard to Libya, no, there's no congressional declaration to be able to do what we're doing. The United Nations, I get the sense for the first time in my life anyway, that this is an action being directed by the United Nations where we're not in the driver's seat. We seem to be in the back seat, and according to the President, we're reluctant passengers. We think maybe there's some reckless driving going on here, but we're going to take a minor role. Why do I have this sense that in the days and weeks to come, that minor role becomes more of a major role, more of a leading player? And what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What are we accomplishing? We're not going to take Gaddafi out of power, that he might remain in power. And when you realize that although we've established a no-fly zone to ostensibly prevent genocide from occurring in Libya, fact is, one of the modern-day genocides that have occurred was under the umbrella of a no-fly zone in Bosnia. And then, although we're not going to commit any ground troops to what's happening in Libya, what happens when there is killing that gets reported by Gaddafi against the people involved? What happens then? I think we might have ground troops. I mean, this is what I've become so cynical of as a citizen of this country, seeing us engaged in endless civil wars. And is this not a civil war? Who is it that we're supporting? And when you hear or when you read of an Al-Qaeda statement that rebels, we support you, I just like as much clarification as possible.
Well, let's talk about Kucinich's recent statements. There's a number of Democrats in Congress that have questioned that this could possibly be grounds for impeachment. Do you agree with that?
Impeachment aside, this doesn't seem to be grounded in good decision making. This seems to be grounded in the continuing notion that we're going to nation build throughout the world. And at what cost? We're bankrupt. We cannot continue to spend money as well-sounding, as well-meaning as it might sound, to bring democracy to other countries. This well may be a civil war. This well may be a civil war movement moving throughout the Middle East, and we're picking winners and losers.
Remember, you can watch the entire interview with Gary Johnson by clicking on the link in the description below, or you can visit our YouTube channel. After we take a quick break, we'll be back with a new punk rock politics segment with Jason Burmis.
I lost my husband,
My son,
My uncle.
my nephew, September 11th, 2001.
Most people don't know a third tower fell that day.
the government says fire brought it down.
The collapse of World Trade Center 7 was primarily due to fires.
I, along with 1,400 other architects and engineers,
have found the government's conclusion to be physically impossible.
Impossible.
We need the truth about what happened that day.
Go to rememberbuilding7.org.
Why it fell, why it matters, and what you can do.
Welcome back. In this week's Punk Rock Politics segment, Jason Burmis lets us know about a new tactic the upstate New York prison system is taking to gain revenue.
Thanks, Gary. This week it was announced that upstate New York prison system Erie Holding Centers would begin selling advertising to local bail bondsmen and lawyers on 25 large-screen HD televisions that would be placed throughout the prison. Why? Well, to stir up revenue. After all, these are the people that they're marketing towards. And the argument is, hey, when you go to jail, what do you want to do? You want to get out of there. You don't want to be convicted. Now, on one end, this is telling us what we already know. If you have enough money, if you have enough power, you don't do any jail time at all in most cases. You're in the probation system or you do 6 months, and obviously money buys your freedom. This is the message we're giving to people. On the other hand, these telescreens, if you will be throughout the prison. And they're also going to be going through general information, jail policies, and more. So in my eyes, this is yet another step in the Orwellian police state that the United States has ultimately become. Back to you, Gary.
Thanks, Jason. You can find Jason on Facebook at facebook.com/Jason Burmis, and you can also find his DVDs at Infowars.com. And now it's time for the mailbag segment, where last week we asked you, do you feel like enforcing a no-fly zone over Libya is an unprovoked act of war? We'll start with Bob, who sent us an email stating, I can't think of a better example of an unprovoked act of war than going into a country to save them. People have a right to wage civil war without the U.S. stepping in and taking control of the whole country, ensuring the people still don't have the freedom they seek. Karen sent us an email. She said, what the president unilaterally ordered in Libya is absolutely an act of war. Sean R. hit up our Facebook page and left a comment and said, I do believe enforcing a no-fly zone over Libya is an act of war. However, it seems that this action is helping rebels get freedom from a tyrant. So I may look the other way, but yes, it seems to be an act of war. And finally, two pissed-off patriots from Tampa, Florida says, we are expanding our Middle Eastern presence with timed military proficiency. I thought for sure it would be Iran next, seeming as we already started setting them up as a patsy. Oh well. Maybe next week is Iran. I always love reading the mailbag segment. But now it's time for your favorite part of the show. Who is this week's enemy of the state? Who is this week's enemy of the state? Well, it's Senator Joe Lieberman for his statements on Syria.
If Assad does what Gaddafi was doing, which is to threaten to go house to house and kill anybody who's not on his side, there's a precedent now that the world community has set in Libya, and it's the right one. We're not going to stand by and allow this Assad to slaughter his people like his father did years ago. And in doing so, we're being consistent with our American values, and we're also on the side of the Arab people.
American values? Our values are not to get involved with foreign entanglements, Lieberman. Do you remember a guy named Thomas Jefferson? Yeah. You see, you desire us to police the world and sacrifice our men and women overseas for your agenda. That is why you are this week's enemy of the state, Joe Lieberman. That's all we have for you this week, my friends. Hey, take a look down. You see that share button? Yes. Click that button and share this video on your connected networks. Isn't it time you became a leader at RTR.org? For the Reality Report, I'm Gary Franchi.